Weasleys, this is Emily and welcome back to The Burrow. So Charlie and I both want to bring more book related videos to this channel, so today I am starting with a Book Unhaul video. So I kind of have a little bit of a problem with buying books. I used to buy a lot of secondhand books, even if I didn't know what it was. I used to have tons of bookshelves, and now I've moved into a new place. I've kind of narrowed everything down onto this one shelf while having all my comics in storage. So I found about 40 books here that I'm ready to let go of. Even though last summer I unhauled about 100 more books, I kind of have a problem. So let's just start. So I picked this one up randomly at a book sale. It is called Gloriana, or The Unfulfilled Queen, being a romance by Michael Moorcock. It does have a really nice cover, even though there's a sticker on there. I've never actually read this. I've had it for a few years now. It's not in the best condition, and I don't think I even saw that it said a romance on the cover when I did pick it up. I thought it was more like high fantasy, and I think I got this when I was trying to get into fantasy. So I just can't see myself reading this at this point, so it's gonna go. Next up might be kind of shocking. This is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So I did read this and I thought it was just okay. I felt like for 2/3 of the book literally nothing happens, and it just was not my favorite book ever. I can't see myself ever rereading it. I'd much rather watch the CBC miniseries than read this again. So I know you can't really see, but this is called Tucker's People by Ira Wolfert, I think. This is a really old book, and it's signed by Eileen Pfeiffer from 1944, and that's actually my grandma. Maybe I will keep this. I didn't realize this had my grandma's signature in it, so maybe I will keep it. I have no idea what this is about. I do really like old books, but I've just gotten rid of so many over the years that it kind of just doesn't fit in with my collection, but I think I'm gonna actually think about this one for a while, and I'll hold on to it for now. Next up is A Little Black Book of New York. My mom gave this to me, and it's just a guidebook to New York. This is the 2010 edition, and I didn't even remember to bring this with me last time I went to New York City, so I think I need to let this go. In the age of cell phones, I don't really need a book like this. Sorry, Mom. This type of thing gets outdated really fast, so that's gonna go. This is the College Handbook of Creative Writing, the 3rd edition by Robert DeMaria, and I had to buy this for a short story course I took a couple of years ago, and I've been holding onto it because this cost $114. You guys know how much textbooks cost, but I've been holding onto it because I was trying so hard to sell it, and I just never could get the money back that I paid for it. So this is just a loss for me, and it's gonna go now. I have a couple more textbooks from similar courses here. This is the Oxford Book of Science Fiction Stories. This is a collection of short fiction. This one was much more affordable. It was only about $20, and this was used in an online science fiction course that I took. I can't really remember anything that jumped out at me in this collection that we had to read for class, and I can't see myself returning it to it, so it's gonna go. And related to that is Science Fiction, a Historical Anthology, and this was for, I can't remember if it was for the same course or a different one, but this is kind of interesting in that it starts off with pretty early science fiction stories, starting out in the 1650s, going all the way up to the 1950s. So there were a couple of interesting stories in this, but again, I'm probably never gonna sit down and reread this. Next up is not a textbook. This is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. I just didn't find this was my thing. I didn't really like the humor style in it, and the art style is nothing really to kind of write home about, and I just never really want to reread this. So I actually purchased these pretty recently. These are the first 3 books in the Vampire Chronicles, I think the series is called, by Anne Rice. Interview with the Vampire, The Vampire Lestat, and The Queen of the Damned. I really love Interview with the Vampire, but I feel like Anne Rice is kind of a one-hit wonder. Like, I've read many of her other books and they just could not even hold a candle to Interview. The Vampire Lestat was okay. The Queen of the Damned was just okay as well. There's a 4th book after Queen of the Damned, which I don't have, which I actually really liked. It was my second favorite to Interview, and it's called The Case of the Body Thief. Tale of the Body Thief, something like that. But I don't have this, and I purchased these secondhand. I'm pretty sure I'm never going to read these again. I probably will read Interview with the Vampire again, but I might listen to it in audio. I also have the movie, so I really like the movie as well. I might just end up watching that. Following that is Prince Lestat by Anne Rice. This is the second latest novel by her. This book I regret buying so much because, as you can see, it's a big hardcover format, and I bought it at full price, and it was so bad. I think in my review I said something about Anne Rice being on drugs, and that was because this book just made zero sense. Lestat just acted completely out of character. I couldn't understand the motives of any of the characters, even though I've read all the books, even like the novellas and stuff like that. I just don't understand the motive of like the bad guy in this. And now there's a brand new book out starring Lestat called something to do with the realms of Atlantis. So I'm definitely going to read that. I'm waiting for it at my library, but I'm not going to be paying $20 for it like I did for this one. And this one is getting out of my life because there's no way I'm ever reading this again. Next up is Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This is actually one of my favorite books ever, but I have another copy of it, so I don't know why I hung on to 2 copies for so long. And this one is a rather old copy, as you can see. It's kind of got a bizarre cover. It's pretty beat up, so I'm going to be donating this one to the secondhand store. Another old beat up copy of Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I've also heard people say Crichton, but in my head I always say Crichton, so I'm going to just go with that. I really love this book. I love the movie, but again, I'm probably never going to reread this, and it's just in such bad shape, it's not really worth holding on to. This one is a book I've never read. It's Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. They're both in here, and I purchased this secondhand. I picked it up kind of on a whim. At my bank, they have a little table where they sometimes have like used books for sale for charity on there, which is kind of dangerous for me because I usually end up picking up 1 or 2. So I think I got this one there. I've had it for over a year now, and I haven't picked it up at all. I just don't really have any interest in this. If I were to read this, I'd probably listen to it on audio, so this one's going to. This is another one I picked up on a pretty pretentious whim. It is 6 Great Modern Plays. I honestly have no idea of what any of these plays are about. I don't even know what possessed me to buy this, so goodbye. This is an art book. It's called Comic Artist Asia, and it has just quite a bit of different artists featured in here from Japan, China, and Korea. I've had this book for ages. I'm pretty sure I've had this since I was in high school, and it's just not one that I reach for anymore, so this one's going. Next in the pile is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden, and my mom gave me this, so again, sorry mom if you're watching this, but I've had this for over 10 years. I think I've had this for like 11 years at least. I like the movie, I like the novel, but I've never read it, and I think after 11 years I'm probably not going to. Also, it's the movie edition cover, which I'm never really partial to. This book is called Modern Japanese Culture, edited by Yoshio Sugimoto, and it's a Cambridge University publication. I don't remember where I got this from. I think a friend of mine gave it to me. I've never read it though because I already kind of have a primary knowledge on Japanese culture, so I just don't feel the need to read this. Like, I feel like I would know everything in it already. Oh my god, my face is so sweaty. Next up is The Book of Dead Days by Marcus Sedgwick, and this is a kind of young adult, maybe middle grade novel. It's kind of like paranormal fantasy sort of, and I did like it okay. It's kind of like about like magic and a wizard and like stuff like that, but I think this is part of a series and I just never really felt compelled to pick up the next book. So I'm gonna get rid of this one too. The next is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and again, this is one of my favorite novels, but I have more than one copy of it. One of the times that I met Margaret Atwood at a signing, I couldn't find my original copy of The Handmaid's Tale, so I panic bought this one, and this one is such an ugly edition, I find. I think it's like textbook bound. It's got that kind of cover. Here's her signature here. And I think even she was surprised to see this. She kind of just like stared at the cover for kind of a long time when I brought it up to her to be signed. So even though it is signed, I don't really want to keep this just because I do have my original paperback that I got of this book, and I'm way more attached to that than I am to this. The next one is sort of an art instructional book. It's called 50 Fantasy Vehicles to Draw and Paint. I bought this while I was in school, but I just never really look at it. And another graphic novel, this is The Wizard of Oz. It's a retelling, obviously, of L. Frank Baum's story, adapted by David Chauvel and Enrique Fernandez. The art in it is just not really my thing. I did read it back when I got it, but I've never reread it, and it's time for it to find a new home. Another instructional book, this is a textbook. It is The Visual Story, Seeing the Structure of Film, TV, and New Media by Bruce Block. This was not a required reading in my college days, but it was recommended, and this is just a basic handbook on filmmaking. I did take pictures to keep of a couple pages that I thought were useful for now, but for the book overall, I just don't really feel the need to keep it at this point. Another graphic novel, this is Pop Bot by Ashley Wood, and this is volume 7, and I don't have any of the other volumes, so the story in this made literally no sense, but I'm a big fan of Ashley Wood. He's the artist of this, and I just picked it up for that reason, to look at the art, but since I am not invested in the story, I've just decided to let this one go. I've got a couple more art instruction books here. This is The Art of Animal Drawing by Ken Holtgren, and I just don't need these anymore. This is How to Draw Animals by Jack Ham, and this one is Realistic Figure Drawing by Joseph Shepard. And this is actually a very nice book. I don't know if I can actually even show this on YouTube because it's all like nude figures, but this one is actually a decent book. The previous two I just showed you, they're kind of like old looking, as you saw, but this is a really nice instructional book. So I can recommend this one, but I'm not gonna hold on to it right now. Oh my god, so many old art books, like my goodness. Perspective, this is by William F. Powell, and this is just a beginner's guide to drawing landscapes and buildings in perspective and stuff like that, which again, I don't really need anymore. Not trying to brag, but I already went to school and stuff like that. Drawing with Pastels and Pencils by Hazel Harrison. Again, I really don't need this book. Another How to Draw the Human Figure book by Louise Gordon. This one has a lot of anatomical reference in it. There's like muscles and bones and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm just never gonna remember to reach for this, so it's gonna go to a better home. Another Margaret Atwood book. This is The Blind Assassin. I don't currently own any other copies of this, but I've already read this, and I'm just not attached to this copy because I bought it secondhand. The spine is really broken. I just don't really feel like hanging onto it because it's just not an edition that I really like. So I'm gonna get rid of this one for now. Okay, so y'all know this one. This is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I had never read John Green before when this book came out, and I picked the audiobook up from my library. I listened to it all one day, and at the end of the book, I was just crying all night, and I seriously have never cried at a book before. I know, like, in one of my videos I was like, I don't cry, I never cry, and like a bunch of my videos I'm always like about to cry or telling you guys that I cried at something. But seriously, I didn't even cry when like Snape died or anything, so that was like really a powerful moment for me. But as I started thinking about the book later, I realized that I had just been played by John Green. So if you guys don't know, this is about teenagers with terminal cancers. I just realized that he had set up the entire thing to make the reader feel terrible at the ending, and I just felt so played by that. And on top of that, I found out that John Green based this on a girl's journal, a real life person story, which kind of took some of like the credibility away from it for me. Then I proceeded to read 2 more John Green novels, and I hated the shit out of them. So now I just hate this book, and I really don't ever want to see it again. The next book is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I love this book, even though I soon after I read it found out Orson Scott Card is a bigot and he's a terrible person. I don't want to support him anymore, so I don't own any more of his books, so I read one of the sequels to this. Again, I feel like he is like Anne Rice, where he's a one-hit wonder. The first book in his series is really good, and he tried to play off of the success of that and ended up just not doing as well. On top of that, this is like the mass market paperback, which I don't really like hanging on to. I really am preferring hardcovers lately. This is Astronomy for Dummies. I believe it's by Stephen P. Moran, PhD, and my dad bought this for me many years ago when I was a kid. I really wanted a telescope, but I've never read this all the way through, and again, in the internet age, this kind of instructional book is just kind of outdated. It's not needed. It's much easier to look up information online. Okay, almost done the pile now, guys. The next one is The Chess Machine by Robert Lohr, and this is a book I picked up on a whim when it was on clearance for $3, and I thought it looked interesting enough. It takes place in Vienna in 1770. It sounds like it's kind of a steampunk almost sort of universe, and it's about an automaton, and the thing knows how to play chess or something like that. I don't know. But I have had this on my shelves for a few years, and I've never ever read it. So I just have so many books now that I still haven't read, and I keep getting more and more all the time. So I just feel like I'm never gonna actually get to this, and it should go. Another boring nonfiction book. This is The Subway Guide to Tokyo. I picked this up in an Amazon order one time. It was on sale for like $1 something. Again, I didn't remember to use this last time I went to Japan, and it's the type of thing that gets outdated very easily, and it's so much easier to look up where you need to go on Google Maps. Here's another Margaret Atwood novel. This is Alias Grace, and I actually have not read this one yet. I'm kind of like saving it because I've heard this one is really amazing, and I have 2 copies of this, and I didn't realize it for the longest time. I think I had 2 copies for like a couple of years, and my other copy, I like the cover quite a bit more. This one's very like dated looking, so I decided to let this one go and keep my other one. Here's another one I picked up on clearance, and this is Tales from Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I did actually try to read this, but I believe it is a collection of short stories in this universe of Earthsea, and so I didn't really get it because I haven't read like the actual canon, like the original story of this, so I just couldn't really get anything from it. So I haven't actually caught up on any science fiction or fantasy by Le Guin yet, which I've been meaning to for a long time, but since I haven't done it yet, I haven't been able to get to this, so I'm gonna have to let it go. Next up is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. And my friend gave me this book, so I'm sorry if you watch this, but I did read this and it was okay, but I did like the Ghibli movie much more than the book. A lot of it is quite similar to the book, but I feel like the movie cut out all of the unnecessary parts, and I saw the movie before I read the book, so I kind of have that like first experience attachment to the movie more so than this. And I had another Diana Wynne Jones book when I was really young, and I remember not really being able to get into it. I'm super picky with fantasy, so yeah, I'm never ever gonna read this again, I'm sorry. And here's the last one, guys. This is a huge textbook called Anatomy for Artists. Again, this textbook cost over $100 and I've never been able to sell it, so I give up and it's gonna go now. Phew! Okay, I'm so sweaty. I'm sorry how shiny my face looks. I don't know why I'm so sweaty, just from like lifting all the books. I don't know. So that has been my book unhaul. I hope you guys like this type of video. If you do, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know if you've read any of these books down below in the comments and what you thought of them. And if you have any other requests, book-related videos for us, also leave those in the comments down below, or you can tweet at us. All the information will be in the description bar down below. If you haven't been keeping up with our videos, you might not know that my webcomic has been out for a few months now, and I've just finished posting all of chapter 1, so now is a really good time to read up on it. If you don't like reading 1 page a week, there's a good chunk in there that you can read now, but it's also not too much, and it's all free, of course. The link will be down below, so make sure you check that out if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.